speak about. Any suggestions?
How she's feeling in this moment and what wakes her up in the morning and takes her to bed at night. Passion.
Okay. But I'm feeling good because we have a nice son and a good company, and we're always very happy when Arun brings this group. What wakes me up in the morning is something to do that brings me satisfaction, and in my assessment of things, makes a difference. But in the land of Gandhi and the land of Gita, we also learn how to combine deep engagement and your best giving with a detachment. But you don't know where things will go. A Monsanto bribe can interfere in the middle of it all, or something else can happen, and you just know the world is just too complex to be influenced by your little interventions. No matter what a big heart they come from, So you just have to combine this combination of passion with detachment. And when I get to sleep, I sleep very well. I can sleep anywhere. People get dazed. This lady tells me in the train, this thing was banging on your head all night, and you weren't getting disturbed. And I got disturbed. The emergency chain was banging.
Oh, yes.
I think once I sleep. People could be screaming, dogs could be barking. I just sleep. And if I have to sleep, I can sleep in a chair. Yeah. Very
like
often
me.
you don't get a bed. Very often you just don't get a bed. You're traveling. So for me, a very high luxury in life is being horizontal. Basic things we don't appreciate till we just like health, we don't appreciate till we lose it for a while. Or good food that we don't appreciate till, you thirst with just bad stuff. And I work hard, so sleep is good. It's nice to get to bed. But overall, that was the literal answer. Overall, from when I was a child, my passion really was understanding the world and nature and how things work, That's been my passion. That's why I did physics. That's why I did my doctorate in physics. But I realized there was nature was not just the part controlled by science. It's the planet. And we were very fortunate. Kuldeep is my brother and he volunteers to help since he retired. And we're very grateful because, he's an Air Force officer. Air Force officers bring a little order into chaos. Sometimes a bit too much, but normally it's a good dose. We could do with it. Because I'm too freewheeling, I believe in sowing a seed and letting it grow. And sometimes they just grow in all kinds of directions. But because our dad grew up in the forest, this is where we've grown up. We walked these mountains when they were forests, and we walked them when the forest went. So I was very concerned about seeing the forest disappear, especially when I was leaving to do my PhD in Canada, and I wanted to travel to my favorite spots, not far from here, but the best forest I knew, the best stream I knew. The forest was gone; it had been converted into a massive apple belt, and because the oak forest used to provide water to the streams, the rivers were gone, the streams in which I traveled. And that kind of just shook me, because it was after a gap. And so just sitting and talking, we have these dhabas up in the hills, these chai dhabas. And I was talking to the villagers about the destruction, and they said, oh, but thank God this Chipko. I said, what? And they talked about how village women had started to resist the cutting of trees, way up in the Alaknanda Valley at that time, And they came out in this most amazing Gandhian action, which was not an accident, and I'll tell you why it wasn't an accident. But Chipko means to hug. And the women would say, we'll hug the trees. You can't kill them before killing us. And that's what eventually led to a logging ban for the forests of mountains. But it wasn't, it wasn't just an action, it was also a change in policy and perception, because the women were saying these forests, the slogan was, what do the forests bear? They bear soil, water, and pure air. Because the official management of forests, it's called scientific management, says what the forests bear is timber that can be sold,
Right.
or pulp that can be turned into paper. But the women were saying the forests are the standing trees, and these are our sacred mothers, and what they give us is soil, water, and pure air. And I remember in '78 we had a horrible flood, because a mountain had been logged very, very heavily, and you have a lot of clear cut in the US,
Yeah.
but you don't get the kind of monsoons that we get. You get a drizzle. Your rain is a drizzle. We get monsoon. In this valley, we get 4,000 millimeters in the monsoon. 4 meters. That's a lot of water. And on certain days, before, when we were setting up this farm, we hadn't at that point made these water conservation systems and, drainage systems, etc. There were days there'd be this much water going over as a sheet of water all over the farm. So the power of water in these areas is very, very high. And the mountains are very fragile because they're the youngest mountain system of the world. They're still forming. The Himalayas is still rising 2 centimeters a year. Because it's been formed by the crashing of 2 plates, and it's rising. And because it's formed through crashing, it's all absolutely rubble. It's not consolidated rock. And you tear the trees apart, the rain comes, it washes the mountain down. And that's what happened 78 above Uttarkashi. An entire mountain was washed into the river. A 4-mile lake was formed, which eventually got burst, and the floods went all the way to Calcutta.
Wow.
That's when the policymakers said, yeah, it's true. The forests do bear water and soil, But the air thing is crazy. What is Copenhagen negotiating? Protecting forests to keep the air clean, to absorb pollution. So here were village women, no ability to write, totally illiterate. In one slogan, they had encapsulated the entire ecological science.
Would you repeat that slogan?
What do the forests bear? Soil, water, and pure air. And the official thing was they bear profits, revenue, and reason. And in some of the actions, women were arrested for blocking revenue collection by the government. And the timber lobby used to be the biggest financier of elections. Later it was this limestone lobby also, which also we stopped through a court case as well as direct action of wage time. But when I was saying it wasn't an accident that this action of non-violence, to say we'll hug the trees, and addressing violence through non-violence, the history of it is this, that Gandhi had 2 very close disciples who had come from the West. And they got the name Meera Behen and Sarla Behen. Both actually came from England, but one was originally Austrian. And one was an admiral's daughter. I think Meera Behen was the admiral's daughter. And then as they were getting older, falling ill, not being able to deal with the heat, Gandhi said, you go up to the hills. You can't cope with the heat of Sevagram. You go up to the mountains, start programs there. So Sarla Behen went to Kumaon and started what is called the Lakshmi Ashram for women's education. And Meera Behen actually came to this valley and started Pashulok for protecting cows. And she used to come up, when we were little kids up in Chakrotha, she used to come to collect seeds of clover for growing fodder for the cattle. And Sarla Behen always came and stayed with my parents whenever she came to wherever they were. They started to bring all this thinking, to the younger generation of Gandhians. And that younger generation could then articulate these issues very, very much. It's not that the women were taught by them. Women did this action on their own. But what was the whole issue? To articulate it, you know, to